Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. President Trump keeps India on the edge even as the 1st August tariff deadline draws closer. Tells reporters on board Air Force One that India could face up to 25% tariffs in the absence of the deal. Rangebound trade on Dalal Street. The Nifty ends above the 24,800 mark as IT FMCG lead from the front. The Rupee touches a 5-month low on the back of a costlier oil and stronger dollar index. The U.S. Federal Reserve is largely expected to maintain a status quo as it announces its rate decision later tonight. However, investors will keenly await Powell's statement for hints on the central bank's future monetary policy. Global markets tread with caution. Infosys CEO Salil Parekh says that artificial intelligence is helping expand the overall market, adds the company is well positioned, remains on the lookout for AI acquisitions, lays out plans to recruit 20,000 graduates across FY26, says there's no change in the company's capital allocation policy. Tata Motors likely to acquire Italian commercial vehicle maker IVECO Group from the Agnelli family, which owns Fiat and Ferrari. Sources say the deal is likely to be valued at $4.5 billion, making it the biggest acquisition for the company and the second biggest for the Tata Group after Chorus. French automation giant Schneider Electric will buy Temasek's 35% stake in the unlisted India joint venture to reach full ownership, calls the all-cash $5.5 billion deal the next logical step in its strategic focus on India. Microsoft restores services to Nayara Energy backed by Russia's Rosneft after it moved the Delhi High Court. Nayara alleged corporate overreach and argued Microsoft is not bound by Europe's sanctions on Russia. Nayara withdraws the petition after Microsoft restored services. Tsunami waves reached the shores of California after a strong earthquake jolts Russia's Far East. Evacuation orders issued across the Pacific, including the coast of Japan, Russia and the US. The 8.8 magnitude earthquake is the largest in 14 years. At least 154 Palestinians have starved to death in the last few months, according to officials in Gaza. 21 people killed overnight as Israeli bombing continues. The death toll in Gaza crosses 60,000. Britain will recognize Palestinian state by September if Israel does not end the war in Gaza. For the top story this evening, President Trump keeping India on the edge as the 1st of August tariff deadline draws closer. Now, during a press gaggle on board Air Force One, President Trump said that India could face tariffs of up to 25% in the absence of a trade deal. Trump also denied the finalization of any deal with New Delhi. Along with India, Bangladesh, South Korea, Malaysia, Cambodia and Thailand are yet to strike a deal with the US. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reiterated that the administration is in no hurry to sign trade deals. Speaking to CNBC, Bessent added that Washington is more concerned about the quality of the deal than the timing. Take a look.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
They are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what rate are you expecting?
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. But India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that. I think the trade deals are working out very well, hopefully for everybody, but for the United States, they're very, very good.
Now the price of a deal with the United States of America is black and white, completely open markets. He wants to make sure that Americans can sell their goods overseas. He's tired of all those years where it was unfair and asymmetric against us. He wants to right the wrong of the last 80 years of trade policy, and he wants to do it now, and that's what he's doing. So are there deals on the table for him to consider? Yes, but he knows that he can just set the rate and set the price and move on. And he said that over and over again. We put in front of him the deal, he sees the deal, and he decides, do I want to do a deal with India or I don't?
Well, President Trump will decide whether the U.S. wants to do a deal with India or not at this point. The 1st of August deadline almost here. Now, top officials from the U.S. and China, meanwhile, have concluded a 2-day meeting in Sweden. but without any major breakthrough on the tariff front. Both nations have agreed to work towards extending the 90-day tariff truce. However, the U.S. Treasury Secretary has said that the U.S. president will have the final say on all pending trade agreements as well as the tariff truce. But let's talk about the day's market action. The Sensex and the Nifty outperforming the broader markets after a range-bound session today. Mid-caps closing in the red, while the Nifty Bank fell over 70 points. That's the story there, 143 points higher. On the Sensex, a flat close, but nevertheless in the green. Mid-caps down just about in the red. Prashant is standing by to wrap up the market action for us. Prashant.
The follow-up that you would have expected, the market ending about 30, 40 odd points higher, but not bad. I mean, could not, the 25,000 mark technically is important for the index to close above. That could not happen, but it's neither here nor there. So that's the kind of close we had. But all about individual sort of names and a flood of earnings-led reactions coming through. But the indices, Nifty Bank, mid and small caps also did not do very much at all, sideways for the most parts. I'll start with large caps. L&T was the big one, 5% outsized move after strong numbers. Sun Pharma was up about 1.5%. NTPC, Maruti and Tata Consumer were the other 1% plus gains today. On the downside, you had Tata Motors, which was down 3.5%. We've been, of course, telling you the reason why throughout the session. Hero MotoCorp was down 2%, and there was Bajaj, which was down about 1% as well. So, between the top gainer or the loser and the number 2, number 3, number 4, big difference both on the upside and the downside as well. In the broader space, advances still outnumbered declines by a sliver. So New India Assurance, I mean, where do you see this, right? 18%, but that's not the story. Number one volume-led gainer on the NSE today, and there's only 5% float in the market for New India. And so humongous volumes, relatively speaking. DMart, 7%. There was Hitachi, which was up 5%. Zuari, big move yesterday, big move today. Godfrey Phillips was up 5%. Coromandel was up 6.5%. Sumitomo Chemicals was up 8%. Vishnu Chemicals, 10%. And, this is a theme that we highlighted yesterday as well. Chemicals, 8, 9, 10 of these chemical names. Some common, some new, but 2-day running now. This is a theme which actually has been doing very, very well. I could go on Jubilant Pharma, IOL, etc., etc. So this entire space really buzzing with action. On the downside, Vimta Labs has had a one-way move last 3 days, lost about 8% today. Birla Corp was down 10%. Reddington, Motherson Sumi, Punjab Chemicals, another name, big move yesterday, lost. 5-Star was down 6%. Northern Arc was down about 4%. Moil, and so on and so forth. So enough on both sides. As I said, a little, the advances outnumbering declines by just a little bit. So that's the market action. Not bad, but neither here nor there if you're looking for a directional cue based off what happened today.
Prashant, many thanks. Let's talk about the U.S. Fed. It is set to announce its monetary policy decision later tonight. Fed Chair Jerome Powell and his colleagues have signaled that they favor maintaining a wait-and-see approach at this week's meeting. However, two Trump-appointed Fed governors, Christopher Waller and Michelle Bowman, are potential no votes on keeping rates unchanged. If this happens, it will be the first time in over 30 years that more than one governor voted against the Fed chair. Respondents to CNBC's Fed survey don't expect a rate cut. However, 65% anticipate a cut in September. Let's talk about the currency markets now. The rupee falling to a 5-month low today versus the dollar on a slight uptick in global crude prices and incessant selling by foreign funds. The rupee has fallen by 0.7% today to levels last seen on the 9th of April. Lata standing by with more. Lata, a rather sharp fall.
Well, it has been a rather sharp fall. Rupee has been one of the worst performing currencies for a month now. And today it is again the worst performing currency, about 0.75% lower. We rarely see a 1% fall of the rupee. It's almost there. And other currencies have also fallen. But, the Thai baht and the Korean won are all about 0.3, 0.4. This is a sharp one. And that's obviously the mix of events. Crude prices going to $72. Dollar index up about 0.3. It's at its highest since June 23rd. These factors are contributing. But the bigger factor really is this incessant, relentless foreign portfolio investors selling. And they are selling not just equities, a point which the equity market doesn't notice. There has been incessant selling in bonds as well. And that has only worsened. Even on the trade front, there is a bit of a worry whether the trade deal will come or not. And added to that, our services exports, which are doing very well, have just lost a little bit of sheen because of what the IT companies are telling us and the kind of results they are reporting. So kind of forward outlook of the currency also is getting a bit of the sheen going off. And, there is again a bond sell-off on fears that the Reserve Bank policy may not be all that dovish and it may not be worth buying bonds at this point in time. So it's just a perfect storm that's going for the rupee, and it doesn't look like the storm has blown over.
Lata, many thanks. Now, Tata Motors may acquire Italian commercial vehicle IVECO Group from the Agnelli family. The company owns brands including Fiat and Ferrari. Sources tell us the deal is likely to be valued at $4.5 billion. Shares of Tata Motors down in trade on the back of this development. Parikshit is standing by with more. Parikshit, the likely contours of this deal.
Well, this deal has been in the works for the last 1 year, and Tata Motors has been looking to buy a controlling stake in this Italian company, IVECO, which is a large CV maker with 70% of its revenues coming from the European market. Now, what will Tata Motors get with this? Well, it will get access to key export markets in Europe, North America and Latin America as well. It will get access to futuristic technology, which is important for the company going forward. This deal is likely to take place at $4.5 billion. We believe that both sides will come up with an approval today. When IVECO was reached out to, they said that talks have been in advanced stage to sell both their defense business and their commercial vehicle business. The commercial vehicle business is, of course, going to be acquired by Tata Motors from the Agnelli family of Italy. So we're hoping for an announcement to come in the next few hours, but this will be the largest ever announcement by Tata Motors after the acquisition of JLR.
Parikshit, many thanks. Now, French electrical giant Schneider is acquiring Temasek's 35% stake in their Indian joint venture. The all-cash deal is valued at around $6.4 billion. Schneider said the move gives it full control of its Indian operations. It will also boost decision-making in its third largest market. We'll head into a break, but up next, tsunami waves reach the shores of California after a strong earthquake jolts Russia's Far East evacuation orders issued across the Pacific. That and more when we return. Well, earnings season continues. IndiGo's parent company, InterGlobe Aviation, has missed estimates in the first quarter. Vinny is standing by to take us through IndiGo's numbers. Vinny.
Thanks for that. Yes, a weak set of numbers that have come in from IndiGo, but the expectation also was muted. So we were anticipating this weak number to come in from the company. Now, revenue just a growth of around 4.7% during the quarter. EBITDA margin, that's seen a contraction as well of around 100 basis point, more than 100 basis point, 28% versus 29.6% last year. Profits of the company, significant decline on that front, and all these parameters have missed the CNBC-TV18 poll. Now, talking about expenses, which are important, right? The fuel cost, which accounts to almost 40% of their expense, that's again muted during the quarter. Do not forget, crude prices were still benign even during this quarter. Then we have seen in July a bit of a spike up and volatility coming in there. So in Q1, fuel cost was down by around 9%. Aircraft engine rentals, that expense was down by around 21%. Now, surprisingly, we are seeing supplementary rentals, aircraft repair and maintenance, that has gone up by 18% on a year-on-year basis, as well as airport fee charges, that is up 28%. So that is something where we're seeing an increase coming in. This X of fuel cost, where that increase is coming in, has led to overall weaker yields also that we're seeing impacting the profitability of the company. So the yield for the company has, seen a significant decline coming in at just 4.98 versus 5.24. That's like revenue per seat kilometer is what you could say that would be. Passenger load factor, significant decline, 84.6% versus 86% last year as well. And this all is related by three factors impacting the overall earnings. One, impact of India-Pakistan border issue, plane crash at Ahmedabad, as well as Middle East geopolitical tension led to a lot of rerouting as well as cancellations. That is the impact that came in on the demand and overall weakness that is led because of these three factors in Q1 FY26 for InterGlobe Aviation.
All right, Vinny, many thanks for joining us. That's Interglobe Aviation for you. Swiss banking giant UBS doubled its second quarter net profit on a yearly basis amidst a boost from its investment bank and global wealth management divisions. Net profit attributable to shareholders hitting $2.39 billion, beating analyst expectations. Revenue during the period stood at $12.1 billion. CEO Sergio Ermotti told CNBC that tariff fatigue is beginning to affect client sentiment. The IPO of India's oldest depository, NSDL, saw strong investor interest on the first day of bidding. The 4,000 crore rupee public issue fully subscribed in just 3 hours after it opened. The subscription was led by non-institutional and retail investors. The retail portion was subscribed 1.73 times, while non-institutional investors subscribed 2.36 times the portion that was allocated to them. The government is exploring new opportunities for solar exports to the US and the Middle East amidst a slump in demand in Europe. Sources say the government is currently engaging with the American industry bodies to boost exports of solar modules. As per sources, the government is also addressing issues being faced by domestic solar equipment manufacturers. This month, American solar panel makers filed a case against Indian companies accusing them of dumping cheap goods in the market. They also sought to impose tariffs. Microsoft has restored services to Nayara Energy backed by Russia's Rosneft. This after the energy company moved the Delhi High Court. Nayara alleged corporate overreach by Microsoft and argued that Microsoft is not bound by Europe's sanctions on Russia. Ashmit joins us now with details. Ashmit, relief for Nayara, but this is also an interesting case that could be a precedent.
Indeed, an interesting question being raised by Nayara Energy. It's backed by Russia's Rosneft. It was formerly SR Oil. For context, it has a refining capacity of 20 million tons per annum. That represents 8% of India's total refining capacity. And this was the very question raised, that Microsoft has suspended fully paid services tools from Nayara Energy on the back of July 18th EU sanctions. The question that was raised before the Delhi High Court was by Nayara Energy that Microsoft is a US-based entity. Sanctions have been imposed by the EU. As far as Nayara is concerned, it's an Indian entity. So this question that was raised is that can a US-based company deny services to an Indian company on the back of EU sanctions? Now, this question was raised in the previous hearing before the Delhi High Court, and it is in response to that we understand Microsoft counsels appeared once again today before the High Court, where they clarified that they've taken this question into consideration and on the back of that have restored the services going forward. So to that end, this issue has been resolved for now. But Microsoft also issued a statement where it clarified that it's restored, number one, the services, and that it is an active communication engagement with the EU to understand and ensure continuity of services for Indian players such as Nayara Energy going forward on the back of these EU sanctions. Back to you.
Many thanks, Ashmit, for joining us. Israeli forces continue to bombard Gaza, killing at least 16 Palestinians, including 13 aid seekers since dawn. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told his cabinet that the UK will recognise the state of Palestine by September unless Israel takes substantive steps to end its war on Gaza. Ukraine and Russia continue to trade fire. Kiev has said that 17 people have been killed and 42 were injured after Russia attacked a prison in the country's southeast region. Russia, meanwhile, claims that 3 people were killed and more than 50 apartments were damaged in a Ukrainian drone attack. The US president has said that Washington will start imposing tariffs and other measures on Russia by the 8th of August if Moscow shows no progress towards ending the war. A powerful 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck Russia's far eastern peninsula, triggering tsunami warnings across the Pacific region, including Japan, Hawaii, Alaska, and California. As per the U.S. Geological Survey, this is one of the 10 most powerful earthquakes recorded globally in modern history. The quake damaged buildings, injured several people in the remote parts of Russia. Tsunami waves exceeding 3 to 4 meters led to partial inundation of the port of Kamchatka. Japanese authorities have asked nearly 2 million people to evacuate coastal areas as at least 3 tsunami waves hit the country. No injuries or damage has been reported there so far. Alaska and California also witnessed some tsunami waves. Flights to Hawaii were either diverted or cancelled. Officials have downgraded the tsunami alerts in Hawaii to an advisory level, but asked residents to remain cautious. Indonesia, Canada's British Columbia and US states, including Washington and Oregon, also remain on alert. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC-TV18. Stay tuned. We're back in a minute with more.